Stood at the microphone and felt the room settle. 200 conversations fade into a low hum. Glasses paused midair. Lena stood a few steps behind me, posture perfect, smile locked in place like it had been welded there. Just want to thank everyone for being here tonight, I said, my voice steady. Lena has worked very hard on this celebration. 30 years of marriage, 30 years of faith. 30 years of commitment. A ripple of approving murmurs moved through the room. Lena relaxed just a fraction. But before we continue, I added, I think everyone deserves to know the truth about what those 30 years really look like. I nodded once toward the tech booth. The screen behind me flickered, the wedding slideshow vanished. The first image appeared, a text message in large, unmistakable font. Last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you. A hush fell over the ballroom. Before anyone could react, the next image replaced it. A photo of Lena and Emmanuel in a hotel room, timestamped 5 years earlier. Then another text, then another photo, dates, locations, messages scrolling slowly, methodically. Gasp broke out across the room. Lena spun toward the screen, color draining from her face. This is a lie, she shouted. She's sick, she made this up. But the images kept coming. Wish I married you instead of him. I hate pretending. Same hotel as last time. 7 years of proof laid bare. Emmanuel's wife stood abruptly, hand clamped over her mouth, and stared at the screen like he couldn't process the words. Emmanuel rose halfway from his chair, then froze, trapped between denial and exposure. These messages span 7 years, I said into the microphone. 7 years of lying. 7 years of cheating. 7 years of preaching faithfulness while breaking every vow. Lena lunged toward the tech booth, but two of Mac's cousins stepped into her path without a word. Kenneth walked slowly toward the screen. He read every line. When he reached the message dated on their 25th anniversary, I wish I was with you tonight instead of him. He stopped. He removed his wedding ring. It hit the floor with a sound louder than the music ever had. Without looking at Lena, he turned and walked out. Half the room followed. Lena grabbed the microphone, screaming that I was lying, that I was unstable, that I'd photoshopped everything. But behind her, the evidence kept scrolling. Every accusation she threw only made the truth louder. Emmanuel's wife hurled her champagne glass. It shattered against the wall behind Lena, spraying crystal across the floor. Pastor stood frozen, staring at explicit messages between his deacon and the woman he just praised. And then the laughter started, uncomfortable at first, nervous, then louder, spreading as Lena's perfect image collapsed in real time. She took a step back, heel catching on the stage edge. She reached for the cake display to steady herself. It tipped. Lena fell face first into 3 tiers of white frosting and fondant. For a heartbeat, no one moved, then someone laughed again. Owens came out. Lena knelt in the ruins of her own celebration, mascara streaking, frosting dripping from her hair, screaming for people to stop filming. You lost the right to privacy, I said calmly into the microphone, when you made my miscarriage public. I set the mic down and walked away. The ballroom was still buzzing behind us when Lena pulled me away. To anyone watching, it probably looked affectionate, an overbearing mother-in-law guiding her troubled daughter-in-law somewhere quieter. Her hand on my arm was firm, nails digging in just enough to remind me who was in control. She pushed me into a narrow coat closet and shut the door. The music outside dulled instantly. In the darkness, her smile vanished. No warmth, no performance, just calculation. I know you found something, she said flatly. Shane told me you went through my phone. I steadied my breathing. I didn't go through anything. Your phone lit up, she laughed softly. Doesn't matter, whatever you think you have, it won't work. She stepped closer. I could smell her perfume, sharp and sweet, mixed with champagne. I've spent 30 years building trust in this community, she continued. 30 years being the woman everyone believes. You spent 2 weeks acting like a grieving mess who can't cope. My hands curled into fists. No one is going to believe you over me, she said calmly. Could have video evidence and they'd still think you faked it. My baby died, I said quietly. I didn't lose it, she waved a dismissive hand. Same thing, and stress causes miscarriages. Everyone knows that. The words hit like ice. She leaned in. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to go back out there. You'll smile, clap, and behave. Then you'll go home, pack your things, and file for divorce. You'll disappear quietly from my son's life. And if I don't, I asked. Her lips curved into the cruelest smile I'd ever seen. Then I tell everyone the truth, she said, that you wanted a baby so badly you ignored the warning signs, that you kept working instead of resting. You caused your own miscarriage. For a moment, the world went very still. I realized then that Lena didn't have limits. She didn't love her husband or her son, or even the man she was sleeping with. She loved being admired. You don't love anyone, I said. You just love being worshipped. Something flickered in her eyes, anger made recognition. I stepped closer. I found the jewelry, the bracelet, the pearls, the necklace Emmanuel bought you. Keep them hidden like trophies. Her face went pale. Before she could respond, her hand shot out and grabbed my throat, not hard enough to choke me, but hard enough to threaten. You don't know what it's like to give everything to family and still be invisible, she hissed. I pulled her hand away. I know exactly what it's like to give everything. Just wouldn't destroy people to feel seen. I opened the door and walked back into the light. Lena followed, already wearing her smile again. Elise, sweetheart, she called, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. Forgot your purse? I didn't stop. I walked straight to the tech booth. Add this to the slideshow, I told the technician, handing him the USB. Play it when I give you the signal. Then I turned back toward the microphone. The room was waiting, and for the first time in weeks, so was I. Didn't argue anymore. That was the scariest part for them, not me. When I left Lena's porch that morning, something inside me went quiet. The panic, the pleading, the desperate need to be believed all burned out at once. What replaced it wasn't rage, it was clarity. Lena wasn't reacting out of fear. She was confident. Confident because she thought she'd already won. She had my husband. She had the family. She had the church. She had a story where I was unstable, grieving, unreliable. And she had a backup plan if I spoke, blame my miscarriage on stress and ambition, turn my loss into a moral failure. That text wasn't a threat. It was a declaration. Control the narrative, so I stopped trying to correct her privately. I went home and started preparing. For 5 days, I lived quietly. I answered messages politely. Didn't argue with Mac when he texted asking if I'd calmed down yet. I didn't respond to Lena at all. I let them believe I was shrinking. Every night after the house was silent, I worked. I organized the screenshots by date. Matched hotel receipts to family trips. I built a timeline that showed exactly where Lena claimed to be and where she actually was. 7 years of deception laid out cleanly, calmly, irrefutably. Anniversary party was in 6 days, 200 guests, a ballroom at the nicest hotel in town, a projector for slideshows, a microphone for speeches, and Lena had planned every second of it. I realized something chilling. She had chosen the stage for me. She wanted witnesses for her perfection. She just didn't realize she'd invited witnesses for her collapse. The night before the party, I stood in front of my closet for a long time. I hadn't been home in 4 days. He was staying with his mother next Module 7, choosing the battlefield, continued, texting only when absolutely necessary. His messages were short, careful, like he was talking to someone unpredictable. Have you thought about apologizing yet? Mom's really worried about you. I didn't respond. Instead, I pulled a red dress from the back of my closet. Bought it years ago and never worn it. Lena once told me red was too attention-seeking for my complexion. At the time, I'd laughed it off and put the dress away. Tonight, it felt like armor. Laid it on the bed and set my purse beside it. Inside the purse was the USB drive I'd prepared, every message, every photo, every receipt organized into a clean, undeniable timeline. Checked it 3 times already, opening files, making sure nothing was corrupted. This wasn't revenge. This was correction. I drove to the hotel alone. The ballroom glowed with chandeliers and soft music, white tablecloths, and carefully placed centerpieces. 100 guests in their best clothes, laughing, hugging, congratulating Lena and Kenneth on 30 years of faithful marriage. Lena spotted me the second I walked in. She rushed over with her arms wide, the picture of warmth. Elise came, she said, pulling me into a hug and whispering into my ear, "Smile or people will think you're having another episode." I smiled. "I wouldn't miss this for the world," I said calmly. "Night is going to be unforgettable." Something flickered behind her eyes, suspicion. Then it vanished, replaced by charm as someone called her name and she floated away to accept more praise. I took my seat near the back and scanned the room. And stood near the bar, uncomfortable in his suit. He looked like a man attending his own life rather than living it. Mac appeared beside me and sat down without meeting my eyes. "I didn't think you'd come," he said quietly. "Almost didn't," I replied. He hesitated. "Does this mean you're ready to apologize? Maybe move past all this?" I took a slow sip of champagne. "I think tonight will change a lot of things," I said. "See how it goes." The program began right on time. First, a slideshow, wedding photos, big pictures, vacations, anniversaries, 30 years of curated happiness. Applause followed every image, then the toasts. Family members praised Lena as the glue that held everything together. Church friends called her an example of faith and devotion. The pastor spoke about commitment and sacrifice. Then Emmanuel stood. He raised his glass and smiled. "I've known Lena and Ken for 15 years, he said. "I've never met a more devoted couple." I watched Lena dab at her eyes. Finally, she approached the microphone. "This is the part," I thought, the speech about trust, about vows. About faithfulness, she began, voice trembling with practiced emotion. 30 years ago, I married my best friend." I stood. The scrape of my chair echoed louder than it should have. A few heads turned. Lena faltered when she saw me walking toward the stage. "Elise," she said into the microphone, smile tightening. "What are you doing?" I reached the steps and looked at her. "I just wanted to add something," I said calmly. Her hand closed around my wrist, tight, urgent, hidden behind her smile. "If you do anything stupid," she whispered, "I will destroy you." I met her eyes. "You already tried." And for the first time, I saw fear flash across her face. Didn't tell Mac right away. I needed to breathe first, to sit with what I'd seen. 7 years of lies don't settle quietly in your chest. They burn, they claw, they demand something from you. At night, I waited until Mac came home from work. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I sat him down at the kitchen table the way you do when something matters so much you're afraid emotion might ruin it. "I need you to look at something," I said, "and I need you to actually look before you say anything." He sighed like I was about to accuse his mother of stealing silverware. "Fine," he said. "What is it?" I slid my phone across the table. Emmanuel's message thread was open. He scrolled and scrolled. The silence stretched so long I could hear the refrigerator humming. Watched his face carefully, waiting for shock, anger, betrayal, something that told me he finally saw what I'd been seeing. When he looked up, his expression wasn't what I expected. It wasn't hurt, it was disgust. "I went through my mother's phone," he said. I blinked. "Did you read what's on there? She's been cheating on your father for 7 years. There are photos, receipts." He pushed the phone away like it was contaminated. "Don't care what's on there," he snapped. "You invaded her privacy, and now you're trying to use whatever you found to turn me against her." The floor seemed to tilt. "I didn't break into anything," I said. "She left her phone upstairs." Text popped up. I looked. "Because you're obsessed with proving she's evil," he cut in. "You hear how paranoid that sounds?" I grabbed the phone and held it up. "Look at the dates," I said. "She was with him on their anniversary trip." "Christmas Eve, this isn't paranoia, this is proof." He shook his head slowly. "Or it's fake," he said. "You could have made this up. Photoshop text, created screenshots because you're jealous of how close we are." I stared at him. "You think I faked 7 years of messages?" "I think you're not well," he replied. "And I think you're capable of doing something extreme right now." That's when I understood. Proof doesn't matter when someone has already decided you're unstable. "I didn't fake anything," I said quietly. "But you're going to believe whatever you want." He grabbed his keys. "I'm staying at my mom's tonight," he said. "You need time alone to think about what you've done." The door closed behind him and the house fell silent. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "I know what you found. Keep your mouth shut or I'll tell everyone you caused your own miscarriage." My hands started shaking so badly I nearly dropped the phone. She knew. I drove to Lena's house and found her and Max sitting on the porch, drinking coffee like nothing was wrong. "Showed them the message?" "You sent this," I said. Lena tilted her head, confused. "Sent what?" Mac read it and scoffed. "You probably sent this to yourself." Lena patted his arm gently. "It's okay, honey. She's not well." That was the moment something clicked in place. Private confrontation would never work. Lena had trained everyone to doubt me long before I ever spoke. And if I wanted the truth to come out, I'd need witnesses. Lots of them. Danielle's words stayed with me long after the call ended. "She's setting you up." I sat alone at the kitchen table, staring at the screenshots on my phone, messages from family, comments from strangers, Lena's carefully crafted post presenting herself as the devoted, long-suffering mother-in-law. House didn't feel like mine anymore. Nothing did. 2 days later, Lena called. Her voice was sweet, too sweet. "I need your help," she said. "Kent's out of town, and I'm organizing our 30th anniversary party." "Can't do it alone." I closed my eyes. Every instinct screamed no. But Mac was standing in the doorway, arms crossed, watching me like he was waiting for proof that I could still be reasonable. "You'll come help, won't you?" Lena added. "It would mean so much to me." I said yes, not because I wanted to, because refusing would give her another story to tell. Saturday morning, I drove to her house and spent hours hauling boxes, ironing tablecloths, and folding napkins exactly the way she demanded. She supervised from the couch, correcting everything. "Swans, not rectangles," she said without looking up. "The light is better on the west side for photos." I nodded, adjusted, obeyed. Around noon, she sent me upstairs. "Extra chairs are in the back of the bedroom closet," she called. "Behind the boxes, don't mess anything up." The master bedroom was immaculate. The closet was massive, organized, color-coded, perfect. As I pulled the chairs from the back, a shoebox fell from the top shelf and burst open. It scattered across the floor. I knelt to gather them and froze. Jewelry receipts, expensive ones, a diamond bracelet, pearl earrings, a necklace that cost more than my car. I'd never seen Lena wear any of them. As I stood, her phone buzzed on the nightstand. I shouldn't have looked. But the notification flashed across the screen. Emmanuel read, "Last night was perfect. I can't stop thinking about you." My stomach dropped. Emmanuel, the deacon from her church. The man who always sat beside her at family dinners. The man who refilled her wine glass before anyone else's. My hands moved before my brain could stop them. I picked up the phone. Entered the passcode I'd watched her use 100 times. 7 years of messages. 7 years of "I miss you. I wish I married you. Kent doesn't touch me like you do." Photos, hotel rooms. And stamps that match family trips, holidays, anniversaries. This wasn't an affair. It was a double life. I scrolled until my vision blurred, then methodically started screenshotting everything. texts, photos, receipts, proof stacked on proof. When I finished, I placed the phone back exactly where it had been. I grabbed the chairs and walked downstairs. Found them, I said evenly. Lena smiled at me. Thank you, sweetheart. Family really does show up. I smiled back. She had no idea what I'd just found. But as I drove home with 7 years of secrets in my pocket, I realized something chilling. Private truth would never be enough. Lena didn't deserve a quiet confrontation. She deserved the same thing she'd given me, a public reckoning. Thought it would stop with the family. I really did. I told myself Lena had crossed the line, yes, but surely she wouldn't drag strangers into it. Surely she wouldn't take my grief and parade it beyond people who already believed her version of events. I was wrong. 3 days later, a coworker stopped me in the hallway at work. Hey, she said carefully, like she was stepping around broken glass. Are you okay at home? I frowned. What do you mean? She hesitated, then lowered her voice. Your mother-in-law came to my church prayer group last night. The floor seemed to tilt under my feet. She asked everyone to pray for you, my coworker continued. She said you've been struggling since the pregnancy and that she's worried you might hurt yourself. I couldn't breathe. Lena had gone to my coworker's church, a place I'd never set foot in, a room full of strangers. She stood up there and painted me as someone dangerous, unstable, a risk to myself. This wasn't concern, this was strategy. I drove home in a haze and found Mac on the couch watching TV like nothing was wrong. She told my coworker's church that I might hurt myself, I said, my voice shaking. She stood in front of strangers and said that. He muted the TV. She mentioned she was going to talk to some people about getting you support, he said calmly. I actually think it's a good idea. You haven't been yourself. I stared at him. I haven't been myself because I lost a baby, I said. And then your mother announced it to 3 people. And then she spent 2 weeks telling everyone I'm crazy. He stood up and put his hands on my shoulders, the way you do when you're trying to soothe something unpredictable. Babe, he said gently, I think you should talk to someone. Therapist, maybe. Mom knows a really good one from church. I stepped back. So now I'm supposed to see a therapist your mother recommends, I said, so she can control that narrative too? He sighed in frustration. See. This is exactly what I mean. You think everyone's out to get you. That's not normal. That night, he moved into the guest room. He said he needed space to think, that I was refusing to apologize, refusing to get help. But he didn't know what else to do. I lay in our bed staring at the ceiling, realizing how fast everything had collapsed. In less than 2 weeks, I'd lost my baby. My husband believed I was unstable. His family believed I was unstable. My coworkers were starting to believe it too. Lena had taken my worst moment and turned it into evidence. The next morning, I opened Facebook and felt physically sick. Lena had posted a photo from the dinner. It was her hugging me at the table, eyes closed, face pressed against my hair like a saint comforting the broken. The caption read, "Please pray for my sweet daughter-in-law during this difficult time. She's struggling, but our family will get her through it." Hundreds of likes, dozens of comments praising her strength, tagging mental health resources, calling her an angel. Screenshot everything and sent it to my best friend Danielle with one message. Am I crazy or is this insane? She called immediately. What the hell is wrong with this woman? She said. She's setting you up, and for the first time since all of this began, someone said the words I was afraid to admit to myself. This wasn't grief. This was a takedown, and Lena wasn't finished yet. Don't remember finishing my food. I don't remember what anyone else said at that table after Lena's announcement. All I remember is the heat crawling up my neck as 30 pairs of eyes landed on me like I was an exhibit. Some people looked sympathetic, some looked uncomfortable. A few looked curious, like my grief was gossip they'd finally been invited into. Lena sat back down and slipped her hand over mine. You should smile, she whispered, lips barely moving. People are going to think you don't appreciate them being here for you. That was the moment something in me hardened. I nodded, smiled, played my role, because that's what I'd always done. That's what Lena counted on, but inside I made a decision. Tomorrow I would sit Mac down and force him to choose. Me or his mother. There would be no more pretending this was normal. The car ride home was silent. Drew lights flashed across Mac's face as he stared straight ahead, knuckles white on the steering wheel. I waited for an apology, for anger, for something that acknowledged what had just happened. Finally, he cleared his throat. No, tonight wasn't what you expected. I laughed, a sharp, broken sound. Wasn't what I expected, I said. Your mother announced our miscarriage to 30 people after promising she wouldn't tell anyone. He exhaled slowly. She was trying to help. I turned to him. Help who, me or herself? She thought you needed support, he replied like he'd rehearsed the line. We pulled into the driveway. The engine shut off. The silence felt heavier than before. Need you to apologize to her, he said quietly. I stared at him, sure I'd misheard. Excuse me? You barely spoke all night, he continued. You didn't thank her for the dinner. You just sat there looking miserable. She's upset. She thinks you're mad at her. I'm mad at her, I said. She told everyone about the baby. He rubbed his eyes. She made a mistake. She got emotional, but giving her the silent treatment was cruel, cruel. Got out of the car and walked inside without answering. He followed me into the bedroom. Elise, I'm serious. She called me crying, he added. She thinks you hate her. Good, I said, pulling on my pajamas. You should think about why. He looked at me like I was speaking another language. You're being unreasonable, he said. All she did was ask for prayers. That's what family does. I climbed into bed and turned off the lamp. If you can't see what she did wrong, I said, then I don't know how to explain it to you. He stood there in the dark for a long moment, then he walked out. The guest room door closed softly, but the sound landed like a final decision. Next morning, my phone exploded. 17 messages. His aunt asking if I was okay because Lena was worried about my mental state. A cousin offering to help because she'd heard I wasn't handling the loss well. They're asking if I considered talking to a professional. I showed Mac my phone while he drank his coffee. Look at this, I said. Look what she's doing. He glanced at the screen and shrugged. She's just worried about you. Dollar, that was the moment I realized something terrifying. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a pattern. And Lena was already building a story about me, one where I was unstable, emotional, and unreliable. And my husband was helping her tell it. And it didn't rush toward me when she saw the tears. She stepped over me. She placed her grocery bags on the counter first, like my grief was an inconvenience she needed to work around. She turned, arms crossed, lips pressed into that familiar line of disappointment. When Max said you weren't feeling well, she said, I assumed it was something minor, a cold maybe. Not this. Her eyes dropped to the onesie in my hands. Baby blue still had the tag on it. Why are you crying over baby clothes? She asked. This is dramatic even for you. I should have told her to leave. Should have stood up, walked to the door, and reminded her she didn't own my house just because she had a key. But grief makes you weak in strange ways. I lost the baby, I said. The words cracked as soon as they left my mouth. Her face shifted, not into shock, not into real sympathy, but into something practiced, calculated. She lowered herself to the floor beside me and grabbed my hands like we were sharing a secret. Oh, honey, she said. It explains everything. She squeezed tighter. I knew something was off with you. I just thought you were being moody again. I pulled my hands back. I'm not moody. My baby died. She tilted her head, studying me. And I'm sure you're blaming yourself, she said softly. Even though the doctor probably told you these things just happen sometimes, especially with first pregnancies, especially when the mother is under stress. There it was. Implication wrapped in concern. You have been stressed, she continued. Working all those hours, not resting, not taking care of yourself. I told Mac months ago you needed to slow down. The doctor said it wasn't anything I did, I said, firmer this time. She nodded slowly. Of course he did. They always say that. Then she patted my knee. But we both know you could have taken better care of yourself. I felt something inside me recoil. Please, I said, don't tell anyone. I need time. We weren't ready. She placed a hand over her heart. I would never betray your trust, she said solemnly. I swear on my marriage. I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. She added casually, though the family does deserve to know eventually. They've been asking about grandchildren for years. It's not fair to keep them in the dark forever just because you're embarrassed. Embarrassed. That word echoed in my head long after she left. 2 days later, she called with an idea. A small dinner, she said. Immediate family only. You need to be surrounded by people who love you. I'm not ready, I replied. She sighed heavily. Elise, this isn't about you. Mac's struggling. He needs his family. So I put on a dress and walked straight into a house full of people I never agreed to face, 30 of them. Elena flowing through the room like a grieving saint. Halfway through dinner, she stood and tapped her glass. I need your prayers, she said, tears rolling down her cheeks. My son just lost his first baby. 30 faces turned toward me. And in that moment, I understood something chilling. She hadn't broken her promise by accident. She'd been waiting for the perfect stage. The moment I felt the warmth running down my leg, I knew something was wrong. At first, I told myself it was nothing. 12 weeks pregnant, hormones everywhere, stress from work. My brain searched desperately for any explanation that didn't end in fear. When I locked myself in the bathroom and looked down, the denial shattered. Blood soaked through my dress. My hands started shaking so badly I nearly dropped my phone. I called my husband Mac, barely able to breathe. Something's wrong, I whispered. There's so much blood. Please come get me. I'm on my way, he said instantly. Don't move. I could hear him grabbing his keys, the door slamming behind him, his voice tight with panic. That sound stayed with me, the sound of someone running toward you, not away. By the time we reached the hospital and they hooked me up to monitors, the room felt cold and unreal. The doctor spoke gently, using careful words like spontaneous and unpreventable. She said there was nothing I could have done, but all I heard was that the tiny heartbeat we'd seen just 3 weeks ago was gone. Mac sat on the edge of the bed and buried his face in his hands. I reached for him instinctively, even though I felt hollow. I'm sorry, I said, because grief makes you apologize for things you didn't cause. He looked at me then, eyes red, and pulled me against his chest. This isn't your fault, he said. Don't ever say that. We stayed like that until a nurse came in to explain next steps, words that felt mechanical, distant, unreal. On the drive home, we made a decision. We won't tell anyone yet, I said. I can't handle your mother right now. Mac nodded without hesitation. We'll tell people when you're ready. I believed him. I forgot one important thing. Keeping secrets from his mother, Lena, was impossible. She had a key to our house, and she used it whenever she wanted. 3 days later, I was sitting on the kitchen floor, surrounded by tissues, holding a tiny onesie I'd bought just a week earlier. Hadn't planned to cry like that, it just happened. That's when the front door opened. I looked up and saw Lena standing there with grocery bags in her hands and judgment already written across her face. Well, she said, scanning the mess. This is quite a scene. Something cold settled in my chest. I hadn't invited her, and I had a terrible feeling that letting her into this moment was about to become the worst mistake of my life.